so much for being here.
Thank you, Oliver. It's great to be here.
Not at all. So for those very few which don't know, as a bit of a summary, so founded in 2015, Jumo is a rapidly growing fintech focused on emerging markets. And having served over 16 million people and small businesses to date, I'm sure you will update me on those numbers, but there is no doubt that in a short time, it has become one of the most successful and fastest growing fintechs and payments companies across Africa, and now, of course, Asia. And it's a bit cliche to say it, but you were a trailblazer at the time and solving a problem where I'm sure you saw it yourself. All there was in front of you were hurdles and barriers to overcome. It's really interesting, and it's something that I didn't come across in your research. You say that this journey more broadly began in 2010 before Jumo with a precursor company. What if you wouldn't mind going into that, what were those 5 years before Jumo?
Those years were really learning for me. Starting off in West Africa with a lending operation, which I had thought was a relatively safe entry point, given that I hadn't operated any retail banking products myself at that stage. So if you imagine sort of my experience up to then was very much capital markets, leverage finance, corporate finance, and the retail banking space was really not part of my experience set. And so managed to find what I thought was a good entry point and started an operation in Ghana, and then spent about 4 years mainly making mistakes and learning what worked for customers, what didn't work for customers, what was expensive, what was efficient, but really finding mainly nothing which suggested that it could solve the systemic problem. And that was really the thing that drives me is doing something which can create positive systemic change. So personally, wasn't interested in building, for example, a lending business to maximize profit. It's probably an easier thing to do. No disrespect to those businesses. They can be very valuable. They can do great things for customers. But I was really interested in whether or not we could play a role in a bigger equation of reaching people and enabling something better. And so towards the end of that time, we found through a partnership with a mobile operator that actually there was something that was very compelling, that did have the potential to make systemic impact and to create what I thought could be a very interesting business. And so I really took the decision to focus on that at that point.
So following that previous company, was the concept of Jumo obvious to you at that point, or you knew there was an opportunity there and you then reverse engineered the solution? Or was by that point the solution just glaringly obvious to you, and it was just getting up the motivation and audaciousness to go after that goal?
I think the opportunity was obvious. Beyond that, everything is a little bit more murky. And I think there were some tough conversations at that time amongst the people that I was working about whether or not this vision of building an infrastructure company was just completely mad. I think with good reason. And in retrospect, I respect those voices even more now, given the sort of trials and tribulations that we've been through. It would have been much easier to build a simpler business, which could have been profitable more quickly and was less expensive, and not trying to change behavior. The fundamental, the thing which I think is hardest to do in life and business is changing behavior. So if there is a way of doing things in the industry, then that's very difficult to change, especially when those ways of doing things involve large profit pools.
Yes.
So when there's entrenched profit that people are protecting, and that, you know, there's the incentive structures for people to change and try things and rethink commercial models. Those incentives just aren't there, and because the profits are right in front of you. And I think that's a problem across industries. And so I think I also got some great support from some really important people who I worked with at that stage to push the vision that we could do something more expansive, which was a little bit more ambitious, to build an infrastructure company that could enable various players. But it was a scary thing at the time, because the counterparties that we work with are very large. They're very big businesses with lots of requirements. They're mature businesses. And so the cost of interacting with very large counterparties is high. And I think it's something that you have a number of people who listen to your podcast who are sort of starting out, who are in the earlier stages of their careers. And it's one thing that I would really encourage people not to underestimate. Don't underestimate what it takes to change behavior and to change the direction of very large organizations. They have their own tempos, their own ways of behaving, and cultures and decision-making. And you can do it incrementally if you can demonstrate your value to them. But don't underestimate how hard you will have to fight to demonstrate your value, and how many challenges you'll have to overcome.
Yeah. And that seems to be a common theme throughout this conversation. I think innately you were built to some extent to swim against the current. Would I be right in saying that Jumo could not have existed 5 years before it did? If Jumo were to come into fruition in 2010, it wouldn't have been as successful as it is now. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's fair to a certain extent. We would have had more limitations and more cost to do what we're doing. I think, especially in the last couple of years, the availability of some of the tools that we use to do some of the more advanced predictive methodologies. We're now benefiting from economies of scale on data which are substantial, and that's exciting because it means we can do a better job for the customers. The cost of us getting prediction wrong, for example, in the last 12 months, we've cut it in half. And that's a continuous learning. That means we can pass that benefit back to the customer in lower prices. It means our bank partners get to operate with more sustainable product constructs. It means our payments partners and mobile money partners get to offer more value to the customers who use their payments rails. So that's exciting. And I think that still has a ways to go. It is, I think, a little bit scary in the sense that information economics, as I call them, is a fairly nuclear game. You have to have a lot of resources and momentum over a sustained period of time in order to get an advantage, and then those advantages can become quite big. So I think when they are used well, i.e., in our case, we strive to give that value back to the customer so that everyone can be included. I think that's a good thing. But then there are applications of those type of capabilities which can also be worrying from a social perspective. And I think that's become a much broader and healthier discussion in the last 12 months, especially as people are casting more focus on what you do with these capabilities.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say about that. It's something that I bring up in a lot of discussions, and that's both sides of the coin. You've got individuals and organizations like yourself and Jumo who are using this power and new wave technology for good. So what I'm sure usually happens in interviews is people go through the timeline of Jumo and the positives. But to be quite honest, if people want to find that, they can go onto the Jumo website, and that's what I'm going to refer to now, and a number of other interviews that I've had. So to quickly go through that, obviously founded in 2015. Feel free to correct me at any point here. So put together the first ecosystem of partnerships, really getting it on the move, MTN, Airtel, Tigo, and bringing short-term loan products to market. 2016, the first funding partners were introduced to the operating platform. The company grew rapidly at this point, with the team growing from around 112 to 196 in 2016, with a particular focus on building that technical expertise across Jumo. 2017 was a year of prizes for Jumo, it seems. Won a number of reputable achievements, including the MasterCard Foundation clients, Center Prize, the Google Launchpad Accelerator Program, on which it was brought onto, and the Apps Africa Changing Africa Award. 2018, a funding round of 52 million USD was closed, led by Goldman Sachs and a number of other prevalent investors, of which a further 12.5 million USD was secured by Ode Asset Management later that year. And again, it was a year for partnerships, Jumo partnering with Uber to create Jumo Drive, and partnering with a number of large telecommunication companies, Telenor most notably. 2019, the use of digital savings by Jumo in Tanzania and Zambia grew rapidly. The London Stock Exchange recognized Jumo as one of the 360 companies to inspire Africa in 2019. And also to add on to that, Jumo was invited to participate in Google's Launchpad Studio. From that, and from what people can see, what Jumo has achieved in a well, not even in a relatively short time, in a very short time, it all looks like roses, and it all looks like great successes from one year to the next. But I'm sure he will tell me otherwise. I'm really interested about those first couple of years.
I think starting anything new, when you set direction, you're trying to figure out if you're going the right way, and if you're doing something that's worthwhile. And everyone else is trying to figure out the same thing. So it's an interesting time where you're constantly being tested as to, whether your ideas or your products have any merit. But it's really fun. I look back on that time incredibly fondly. Wonderful people working very hard and doing some great stuff. I think one of the early challenges is, apart from getting the product to work, was creating the type of culture that you want in the business. That was hard, dealing with people problems, people who had different views about the way in which the business should go, and often with a lot of merit. Sometimes looking back and seeing that they may have been right, but finding a way to create a sort of strong and coherent team around a mission, and that people buying into that mission. And then I think getting to product market fit, which is proving that you've got something which is of real scalable value. And for us, that didn't really happen until about 2 years into the journey at an early stage. We had a pretty raw product that customers liked, but it was priced too highly. It was just too expensive for customers. We still had a lot of work to do to bring prices down and make it more efficient. I think it wasn't really until the last couple of years, and I'd say more 2018, 19, that we started to get the product right in the customer's hands. But then we really expanded too rapidly some of our of the things that we'd taken on, and so we had to take some really hard steps in terms of decreasing our cost. at the same time as continuing to drive that product market fit. So, I think, Oliver, just the normal, I'm sure you hear this from other business people and entrepreneurs, is chewing on glass. It's doing the hard things day in, day out, dealing with the problems you have, and then the problems that surprise you, and the people issues, and finding yourself in weird and wonderful situations you never expected to be in.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll put this question to you with the greatest respect, but also a opinion of Jumo from many of those, I would say, mid-level managers that I've spoken to across the continent. And there is an opinion that Jumo has been so committed to scaling across geographies and across regions that sometimes that leaves the core infrastructure and structure of the business relatively fragile and delicate. What would you say to these people?
Yeah, I can understand where that feeling would come from, having seen how much we've taken on. In truth, we were too expansive in the latter part of 2017 and into 2018, and we had to take steps to rectify that. And I think what's less visible is the huge investment that we've made, continue to make all throughout the journey on all of the machinery. And when I say machinery, I mean the information capabilities and the infrastructure. We have some extraordinary talent in our business in that regard, and we've been really lucky to have great talent throughout in the engineering and data side of the business. And Jumo is in the strongest position it's ever been with respect to its resilience from an infrastructure and information point of view. It's been a hard journey to do those things concurrently with expanding. And there's no question that we've made mistakes, but we've this year in particular has been a challenging year with all of the things that have been going on in the market, but at the same time, really investing heavily in our governance, investing heavily in the way in which we are applying our data so that it can provide more benefit to the customers. And I think I've told you that we've halved the cost of risk to serve a customer. So customers are getting more value today from Jumo than they ever have. And it's increasing day by day. So I feel very good about where we are right now. But I understand the suggestion that we've been over expansive. I think there's some truth to that, and we've had to take steps in order to address the mistakes that we've made.
Yeah, so it's a great lesson. AI, what a buzzword it is. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's becoming ever more popular and put in the titles of companies and startups everywhere, and that is globally, not singled out to Africa. But AI is something that I know from, again, doing research and well, the way Jumo has been built, something very, very close to your heart and something you're a big advocate of. How important is AI to the success of Jumo to date, and how important will it be in Jumo holding its market position over the coming years and into the future?
When we talk about AI, we use the Google definition of AI, which they explained to us when we were with them working on Google Studio, which is that if you have application of machine learning that's under the AI framework, no one has independent decisioning anywhere. So Google doesn't have it. No one really has it. I think there is some self-learning, which is really interesting, which is gathering
DeepMind, yeah.
But true independent decisioning is not yet there. So if we just take that framework, yeah, I think we're managing information in a way which is really able to help customers using those tools, and those tools are critical because of efficiency. So I think we're much more pragmatic and try not to get carried away with the buzz. The machine and the machines and tooling that we use are simply a way of more efficiently processing information, so that we can get to the right outcomes for customers and put the right products in front of them, which are going to help them and that they're really going to enjoy and going to want to come back and use. And that might be, a product that we're providing from EcoBank or ABSA with our partner MTN. But we've got a very big vested interest in making sure that it's done in a way that's sustainable, i.e. that the customer benefits, and secondly, that they can continue to benefit and we can continue to improve that benefit. Oliver, you asked about whether or not we can continue to be competitive, and I think what's interesting about the scale application of data in machine learning terms is that your ability to drive efficiency increases the greater scale of data and training you can provide, and we're seeing the benefit of that now. And I think we're still in the journey of extracting as much benefit as we can to give customers the best products. So I think of it that we're in relatively early stages. It's not something that's going to reverse very quickly. It's quite hard to replicate because you need hundreds of millions of data points and certainly more now, I think, than tens of millions of dollars to invest in the type of people, tooling, systems, and time to be able to process that data and train to create the outcomes. Time is a very important aspect of machine learning and prediction that is forgotten. In fact, training the outcomes takes time. So we don't take that for granted. We will continue to invest heavily in that side of our business because it's really the core of what we do, so that we can do a good job for our partners and our customers.
Yep. Fundamentally agree with everything yourself. The scale of data set and timeline on that data set is something that's often overlooked. Final question on Jumo, and this is relatively broad, and I want it to be specifically, what is next for Jumo? Obviously, regional expansion is clear, and growing customer base and services, but is there anything that is on the horizon for Jumo which will shock the fintech world?
That's a great question. In a good way, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, we're pretty focused at the moment. We're being disciplined about what we do, so that we can really deliver. There are some bigger things that we're working on that we may be able to talk about in a few months or so. But yeah, we're trying to make sure that we focus on this incredible opportunity that's in front of us. So don't expect us to do anything flashy. We may do some things which extend our business model a little bit and open up new markets to us that might surprise people, but we'll stay focused.
So no Jumo self-driving cars in the next year? No. Shame. Good answer. Thank you very much, Andrew. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Oliver. It's been fun. Appreciate it.